Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shilakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Mukam karoti vachalam pangam langayate girim yatkripātamaham vande Shri Guru Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Harihi Om Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya Bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishchiki. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranavami Hari Priye. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Govardharam Vande Gopalam Goparupinam Gokulotsava Mishanam Govindo Gopika Priyam. Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Srila Gurudev ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, समस्त गौर भक्तवृंद की जय. निताई गौर सीतानाथ प्रेमानंदे. We are reading from Hari Hari Bol. Canto 1, Chapter 17, Text 28. Maharaj Parikshit, who could fight 1,000 enemies single-handedly, thus pacified the personality of religion and the earth. Then he took up his sharp sword to kill the personality of Kali, who is the cause of all irreligion. Srila Prabhupada's purport. As described above, the personality of Kali, he is he who deliberately commits all kinds of sinful acts which are forbidden in the revealed scriptures. The age of Kali will certainly be full of activities of Kali. But this does not mean that leaders of society, the executive heads, the learned or the intelligent, or above all, the devotees of the Lord should sit down tightly and become callous to the reactions of age of Kali. In the rainy season, there will be profuse rainfall, but that does not mean that men should not take means to protect themselves from the rains. It is a duty of the executive heads and the state and others to take all necessary actions against the activities of Kali. One second, I think my screen share is stuck. Should work now, yeah. Or the persons influenced by the age of Kali, and Maharaj Parikshit is the ideal executive head of the state, for at once he was ready to kill the personality of Kali with his sharp sword. The administrators should not simply pass resolutions for anti-corruptional steps, but they must be ready to with sharp swords to kill the persons creating corruptions from the angle of vision of the recognized Shastras. The administrators cannot prevent corrupt activities by allowing wine shops. They must at once close all shops of intoxication, drug, wine, and force punishment even by death for those who indulge in the habits of intoxication of all descriptions. This is the way of stopping the activities of Kali, as exhibited by herein by Maharaj Parikshit. The Maharatha, text 29. When the personality of Kali understood the king was willing to kill him, he at once abandoned the dress of the king and under the pressure of fear completely surrendered onto him, bowing down his head. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The royal dress of a personality of Kali is artificial. The royal dress is suitable for a king or Kshatriya, but when a lower class man artificially dresses himself as the king. His real identity is disclosed by the challenge of a bona fide Kshatriya like Maharaj Parikshit. A real Kshatriya never surrenders. He accepts the challenge of his rival Kshatriya and he fights either to die or to win. Surrender is unknown to real Kshatriya. In the age of Kali, there are so many pretenders dressed and posed like administrators or executive heads, to, but their real identity is disclosed when they are challenged by a real Kshatriya. Therefore, when the artificial dressed personality of Kali saw that Maharaj Parikshit was beyond his ability, he bowed down his head like a subordinate and gave up his royal dress. Text 30. Maharaj Parikshit, who was qualified to accept surrender and worthy of being sung in the history, did not kill the poor surrendered and fallen Kali, but smiled compassionately, for he, he was kind to the poor. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Even an ordinary Kshatriya does not kill a surrendered person, and what to speak of Maharaj Parikshit, who was by nature compassionate and kind to poor. He was smiling because the artificially dressed Kali had disclosed his identity as a lower class man, and he was thinking how ironic it was that although no one was saved from his sharp sword, when he decided to kill the poor low class Kali was spared by his timely surrender. Maharaj Parikshit's glory and kindness are therefore sung in history. He was a kind and compassionate emperor, fully worthy of accepting surrender even from his enemy, and thus the personality of Kali was saved by the will of providence. Text 31. The king thus said, "We have inherited the fame of Arjuna. Therefore, since you have surrendered yourselves with the folded hands, you need not fear for your life, but you cannot remain in my kingdom." For you are a friend of irreligion. Hare Krishna. Second, Gudakesha. Raja Uvacha Nate Gudakesha. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The personality of Kali, who is a friend of all kind of irreligiosities, may be executed if he surrendered. Maybe if he surrenders, but in all circumstances he cannot be allowed to live as a citizen in any part of welfare state. The Pandavas were entrusted representatives of the personality of God and Lord Shri Krishna, who practically brought into being the battle of Kurukshetra, but not for any personal interest. He wanted an ideal king like Maharaj Yudhishthir and his descendants like Maharaj Parikshit to rule the world, and therefore a responsible king like Maharaj Parikshit would not allow the friend of irreligiosity to flourish in his kingdom at the cost of good fame of the Pandavas. That is the way of whipping out corruption in the state and not otherwise. The friends of irreligiosity should be banished from the state, and that will save the state from corruption. So the four regulative principles, I think, are the friends of irreligiosity. Text 32. If the personality of Kali, irreligion, is allowed to act as man god or an executive head, certainly irreligious principles like greed, falsehood, robbery, incivility, treachery, misfortune, cheating, quarrel, and vanity will abound. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The principles of religion, namely austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness, as we have already discussed, may be followed by the follower of faith. But there is no need to turn into Hindu or Mohammedan or Christian or some other faith and thus become a renegade and not follow the principles of religion. The Bhavatam religion urges following the principles of religion. Amazing. The principles of religions are not the dogmas or regulative principles of a certain faith. Such regulative principles may be different in terms of time and place concerned. One has to see whether the aim of religion has been achieved. Sticking to the dogmas and formulas without attaining the real principle is not good. It's very important actually. I want to check the spelling of fanaticism. Okay, yeah, I think I'm correct. Yeah, it's very important. Sticking to the dogmas and formulas without attaining the real principle is not good. A secular state may be impartial to any particular type of faith, but the state cannot be independent. Hare Krishna. Apologies. A secular state may be impartial to any particular type of faith, but the state cannot be indifferent to the principles of religion as mentioned above. But in the age of Kali, the executive heads of the state will be indifferent to such religious principles, and therefore, under the patronage, the opponents of religious principle, which are greed, falsehood, cheating, and pilafry, will naturally follow, and so there will be no meaning to propaganda crying to stop corruption in the state. Text 33. Therefore, O friend of religion, you do not deserve to remain in a place where experts perform sacrifices according to the truth and religious principles for the satisfaction of Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yagneshwar or Supreme Personality of Godhead is the beneficiary of all kinds of sacrificial ceremonies. Such sacrificial ceremonies are prescribed differently in the scriptures for different ages. In other words, the sacrifice means to accept the supremacy of the Lord and thereby perform acts by which the Lord may be satisfied in all respects. The atheists do not believe in the existence of the God and they do not perform any sacrifice for the satisfaction of the Lord. Any place or country where the supremacy of the Lord is accepted and thus sacrifice is performed is called Brahmavarta. There are different countries in different parts of the world, and each and every country may have different types of sacrifices to please the Supreme Lord. But the central point in pleasing Him is ascertained in Bhavatam, and it is truthfulness. The basic principle of religion is truthfulness, and the ultimate goal of all religions is to satisfy the Lord. In the age of Kali, the greatest common formula of sacrifice is the Sankirtan Yagna. That is the opinion of the experts who know how to propagate the process of Yagna. Lord Chaitanya preached the method of Yagna, and it is understood from this verse that the sacrificial method of Sankirtan Yagna may be performed anywhere and everywhere in order to drive away the personality of Kali. Yeah. And save human society from falling prey to the influence of the age. Text 34. In all sacrificial ceremonies, although sometimes a demigod is worshipped, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipped because He is the super soul of everyone and exists both inside and outside like the air. Thus, it is He only who awards all welfare to the worshipper. Srila Prabhupada's purport. It is even sometimes seen that demigods like Indra and Chandra are worshipped and offered sacrificial altar. Yet the rewards of all such sacrifices are awarded to the worshipper by the Supreme Lord. It is the Lord only who can offer the welfare to the worshipper. The demigod, although worshipped, cannot do anything without the sanction of the Lord, because the Lord is the super soul of everyone, both moving and non-moving. In Bhagavad Gita 9.23, the Lord Himself confirms this in the following shloka. Ye api anya devata bhakta yajante shraddhayanvita te api mam eva konteya yagnata avidhi purvakam. Whatever man may sacrifice to other gods, O son of Kunti, is really meant for me alone, but it is offered without true understanding. The fact is that Supreme Lord is one without a second. There is no God other than the Lord Himself. Thus, the supremacy is eternally transcendental to the material creation. But there are many who worship the demigods like Sun, Moon, and Indra, who are only material representatives of the Supreme Lord. These demigods are indirect qualitative representations of the Supreme Lord. A learned scholar or a devotee, however, knows who is who. Okay. Therefore, he directs worships to the Supreme Lord and is not diverted by the material qualitative representations. Those who are not learned worship such qualitative material representation, but their worship is unceremonious because it is regular. Text 35. Shri Suta Goswami said, the personality of Kali, thus being ordered by Maharaj Parikshit, began to tremble in fear. Seeing the king before him like Yamraj, ready to kill him, Kali spoke to king as follows. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The king is ready to kill the personality of Kali at once, as soon as he disobeyed his order. Otherwise, the king had no objection to allowing him to prolong his life. The personality of Kali also, after attempting to get rid of the punishment in various ways, decided that he must surrender unto him, and thus he began to tremble in fear of his life. The king or the executive head must be so strong as to stand before the personality of Kali like the personality of death, Yamraj. The king's order must be obeyed, otherwise the culprit's life is in risk. That is the way to rule the personality of Kali, who create disturbance in the normal life of the state citizens. Text 36. O your majesty, though I may live anywhere and everywhere under your order, I shall but see you with bow and arrow wherever I look. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The personality of Kali could see that Maharaj Parikshit was the emperor of all lands, all over the world, and thus anywhere he might live, he would have to meet with the same mode of the king. The personality of Kali was meant for mischief, and Maharaj Parikshit was meant for subduing all kinds of mischief mongers, especially the personality of Kali. What does this word mischief monger means? Let's just check once. Krishna, 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 Krishna. A person who deliberately stirs up trouble and inflicts conflict or causes disruptions among people. Okay. Kinds of mischief mongers, especially the personality of Kali. It is better, therefore, for the personality of Kali to have been killed by the king then and there instead of being killed elsewhere. He was, after all, a surrendered soul before the king, and it was for the king to do what was required. Text 37. Therefore, O chief, amongst the protector of religion, please fix some place for me where I can live permanently under the protection of your government. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The personality of Kali addressed Maharaj Parikshit as chief amongst the protectors of religiosity because the king refrained from killing the person who surrendered unto him. A surrendered soul should be given all protection even though he may be an enemy. That is the principle of religion. And we can just imagine what sort of protection is given to personality of what sort of protection is given by the personality of God to the person who surrenders unto him, not as an enemy but as a devoted servitor. The Lord protects the surrendered soul from all sins and all resultant reactions of sinful act. Bhagavad Gita 18.66. Let's just see this 1 second. Govinda Adi Purusha Sarvadharma Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo Mokshashyami Masucha. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. Text 38. Suta Goswami said, Maharaj Parikshit, thus being petitioned by the personality of Kali, gave him permission to reside in places where gambling, drinking, prostitution and animal slaughter were performed. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The basic principles of irreligiosity, such as pride, prostitution, intoxication and falsehood, counteract the four principles of religions, namely austerity, cleanliness, mercy and truthfulness. The personality of Kali was given permission to live in four places particularly mentioned by the king, namely the place of gambling, the place of prostitution, the place of drinking, and the place of animal slaughter. Srila Jeev Goswami Pad directs that drinking against the principles of scriptures, such as Sutramani Yajna, associating with women outside of marriage, and killing animals against the injunctions of scriptures are irreligious. In the Vedas, two different types of injunctions are there for the pravartas, or those who are engaged in material enjoyment, and for the pravartas, or those who are liberated from material bondage, the Vedic injunctions for pravartas is to gradually regulate their activities towards the path of revelation. Therefore, by those who are in the lowest stage of ignorance and who indulge in wine, women, flesh, drinking, performing Sutramani Yagna, association of women by marriage, flesh eating by sacrifice for sometimes are sometimes recommended. Such recommendations in the Vedic literature are meant for particular class of men and not for all. But because they are injunctions of the Vedas for particular types of person, such activities by the Pravartas are not considered adharma. One man's food may be poison for others. Similarly, what is recommended for those in the mode of ignorance may be poison for those in the mode of goodness. Srila Jiva Goswami Pad therefore affirms that recommendations in the scriptures for certain class of men are never to be considered adharma or irreligious, but such activities are factually adharma and they are never to be encouraged. The recommendation in the scripture are not meant for encouragement of such adharma, but for regulating the necessary adharma gradually toward the path of dharma. Following in the footsteps of Maharaj Parikshit, it is the duty of all executive heads of states to see that the principle of religion, namely austerity, cleanliness, mercy, truthfulness, are established in the state, and that the principles of irreligion, namely pride, illicit female association or prostitution, intoxication, and falsity, are checked by all means. And to make the best use of bad bargain, the personality of Kali may be transferred to the place of gambling, drinking, prostitution, and slaughterhouse, if there are any places like that. Those who are addicted to the irreligious habits may be regulated by the injunctions of the scripture. In no circumstances should they be encouraged by any state. In other words, the state should categorically stop all sorts of gambling, drinking, prostitution, falsity. The state which wants to eradicate corruption by majority may introduce the principles of religion in the following manner. Srila Prabhupada is giving such amazing advice, and all the people who manage all these should take this advice. Number 1, 2 compulsory fasting days in a month, if not more austerity. Even from the economic point of view, such 2 fasting days in a month in the state will save tons of food, and the system will also act very favorably in the general health of the citizens. There must be compulsory marriage for young boys and girls attaining 24 years of age and 16 years of age respectively. There is no harm in co-education in school and colleges provided the boys and girls are duly married, and in case there is any intimate connection between a male and female student, they should be married properly without illicit relation. The Divorce Act is encouraging prostitution, and thus this should be abolished. The citizens of state must give in charity up to 15% of their this is nice. The citizen of the state must give in charity up to 15% of their income for the purpose of creating spiritual atmosphere in the state or the human society, both individually and collectively. They should preach the principles of Bhavatam by karma yoga, doing everything for the satisfaction of the Lord. To be by regularly hearing of Srimad Bhavatam from authorized persons or realized souls. See chanting of the glories of the Lord congregationally at home or at place of worship. D. Rendering all kinds of service to Bhagavatas engaged in preaching the Srimad Bhagavatam. And E. Residing in a place where the atmosphere is saturated with God consciousness. If the state is regulated by the above process, naturally there will be God consciousness everywhere. Amazing. Should be family life. Yeah. Gambling of all description, even speculative business enterprises, is considered to be degrading, and when gambling is encouraged in the state, there is complete disappearance of truthfulness. Allowing young boys and girls to remain unmarried more than the above mentioned ages and licensing animal slaughterhouses of all descriptions should be at once prohibited. The flesh eaters may be allowed to take flesh as mentioned in the scriptures and not otherwise. Intoxication of all description, even smoking cigarettes, chewing tobacco and drinking tea must be prohibited. Amazing. Text 39. The personality of Kali asked for something more. And because of his begging, the kings gave him permission to live where there is gold. Because wherever there is gold, there is falsity, intoxication, lust, envy, and enmity. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Although Maharaj Parikshit gave Kali permission to live in 4 places, it was difficult for him to find the places because during the reign of Maharaj Parikshit, there were no such places. Hari Hari. Therefore, Kali asked the king to give him something special which could be utilized for his nefarious purposes. Maharaj Parikshit thus gave him permission to live in the place where there is gold, because wherever there is gold, there are all the above mentioned 4 things, and over and above them, there is enmity also. So, the personality of Kali became gold standardized. This is nice. So the personality of Kali became gold standardized. According to Srimad Bhavatam, gold encourages falsity, intoxication, prostitution, envy, and enmity. And even a gold standard exchange and currency is bad. Gold standard currency is based on the falsehood because the currency is not on par with the reserve gold. The basic principle is falsity because currency notes are issued in value beyond that of the actual reserved gold. The artificial inflation of currency by authorities encourages prostitution of the state economy. Amazing. Wow. Srila Prabhupada Jai. The price of commodities became artificially inflated because of bad money or artificial currency notes. Bad money drives away good money. Instead of paper currency, actual gold coin should be used for exchange, and this will stop prostitution of gold. Gold ornaments for women may be allowed by control, not by quality, but by quantity. This will discourage lust, envy, and enmity. When there is actual gold currency in the form of coins, the influence of gold in producing falsity, prostitution, etc. will automatically cease. There will be no need of anti-corruption ministry for another term of prostitution and falsity of purpose. Text 40. Thus, the personality of Kali, by the directions of Maharaj Parikshit, the son of Uttara, was allowed to live in those 5 places. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Thus, the age of Kali began with gold standardization, and therefore falsity, intoxication, animal slaughter, and prostitution are rampant all over the world, and the saner section is eager to drive out corruption. The counteracting process is suggested above. Everyone can take advantage of this suggestion. Text 41. Therefore, whoever desires progressive well-being, especially kings, religionists, public leaders, brahmanas, and sannyasis, should never come in contact with the 4 above mentioned irreligious principles. The brahmanas are the religious preceptors for all other castes, and the sannyasis are the spiritual masters for all other castes and orders of society. So also are the king and public leaders, who are responsible for the material welfare of all people. The progressive religionists and those who are responsible human beings, or those who do not want to spoil their valuable human life, should refrain from the principles of religiosity, especially illicit connection with women. If a brahmana is not truthful, all his claim as a brahmana at once become null and void. If a sannyasi is illicit connected with women, all his claims as a sannyasi at once became false. Similarly, the king and the public leader are unnecessarily proud of or habituated to drinking or smoking. Certainly, they become disqualified to discharge public welfare activities. Truthfulness is the basic principle of all religions. The 4 leaders of the human society, namely the sannyasis, the brahmanas, the king, and the public leader, must be tested crucially by their character and qualification. Before one can be accepted as a spiritual master or material master of society, he must be tested by the above mentioned criteria of character. Such public leaders may be less qualified than in academic qualifications, but it is necessary primarily that they be free from contamination of the 4 disqualifications, namely gambling, drinking, prostitution, and animal slaughter. Text 42. Thereafter, the king re-established the lost legs of personality of religion, the bull, and by anchoring the activities, he sufficiently improved the condition of the earth. Srila Prabhupada's purport. By designating particular places for the personality of Kali, Maharaj Parikshit practically cheated Kali in the presence of Kali. Dharma in the shape of bull and the earth in the shape of mother cow. He could actually estimate the general condition of his kingdom, and therefore he at once and once again I lost it. And therefore he at once took proper steps to re-establish the legs of the bull, namely austerity, cleanliness and mercy. And okay. Dan, truthfulness was already there. These three were broken: austerity, cleanliness and mercy. So they are also re-established. And for the general benefit of the people of the world, he saw that the gold stock might be employed for stabilization. Gold is certainly a generator of falsity, intoxication, prostitution, enmity and violence. But under the guidance of proper king or public leader or a brahmana or sannyasi, the same gold can be properly utilized to re-establish the lost legs of the bull, the personality of religion. Maharaj Parikshit therefore, like his grandfather Arjuna, collected all illicit gold kept for the propensities of Kali and employed it in the Sankirtana Yagna as per the instructions of Srimad Bhavatam. As we have suggested before, one accumulated wealth may be divided into three parts for distribution, namely 50% for the service of the Lord, 25% for the family and 25% for the personal necessities. Spending 50% for the service of the Lord or the propagation of the spiritual knowledge in society by the way of Sankirtana Yagna is the maximum display of human mercy. People of the world are generally in darkness regarding spiritual knowledge, especially in regard to the devotional service of the Lord, and therefore to propagate the systematic transcendental knowledge of devotional service is the greatest mercy that one can show in the world. When everyone is taught to sacrifice 50% of the accumulated gold for the Lord's service, certainly austerity, cleanliness, mercy automatically ensue, and thus the lost three legs of personality of religion are automatically established when there is sufficient austerity, cleanliness, mercy, truthfulness. Naturally, Mother Earth is completely satisfied, and there is a little chance of Kali to infiltrate the structure of human society. Text 43 and 44. The most fortunate emperor Maharaj Parikshit, who was entrusted with the kingdom of Hastinapur by Maharaj Yudhishthira when he desired to retire in the forest, is now the most fortunate emperor Maharaj Parikshit, who was entrusted with the kingdom of Hastinapur by Maharaj Yudhishthira when he desired to retire to the forest, is now ruling the world with great success due to his being glorified by the deeds of the king of the Kuru dynasty. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The prolonged sacrificial ceremonies undertaken by the sages of Naimisharanya were began shortly after the demise of Maharaj Parikshit. The sacrifice was to continue for 1000 years, and it is understood that in the beginning some of the contemporaries of Baladev, the elder brother of Lord Krishna, also visited the sacrificial place. According to some authorities, the present tense is also used to indicate that the nearest margin of time from the past. In that sense, the present tense is applied to the region of reign of Maharaj Parikshit here. For a continuous fact also, present tense can be used. I want to read the translation once again. Is now ruling the world with years. Okay. Okay. The principles of Maharaj Parikshit can still be continued by human society, can still be improved in if there is determination by the authorities. We can still purge out from the state all activities of immorality introduced by personality of Kali. If we are determined to take actions like Maharaj Parikshit, he allotted some place for Kali. But in fact, Kali could not find such place in the world at all, because Maharaj Parikshit was strictly vigilant to see that there were no places of gambling, drinking, prostitution, animal slaughter. Modern administrators want to banish corruption from the state, but fools as they are, they do not know how to do it. They want to issue license for gambling houses, wine other intoxicating drugs, brothels, hotel prostitution, cinema houses, and falsity in every dealing, even in their own, and they want at the same time to drive out corruption from the state. Hmm. They want the kingdom of the God without God consciousness. How can it be possible to adjust two contradictory matters? If we want to drive out corruption from the state, we must first of all organize society to accept the principles of religion, namely austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. And to make the condition favorable, we must close all places of gambling, drinking, prostitution, falsity. There are some of the practical lessons from the pages of Srimad Bhavatam. Sorry. These are some of the practical lessons from the pages of Srimad Bhavatam. Text 45. Maharaj Parikshit, the son of Abhimanyu, is so experienced that by dint of his expert administration and patronage, it has been possible for you to sacrifice such as this. Perform a sacrifice such as this. Shri Prabhupada's purport. The Brahmanas and Sannyasis are expert in spiritual advancement of the society, whereas the Kshatriyas or administrators are expert in the material peace and prosperity of the human society. Both of them are the pillars of all happiness, and therefore they are meant for full cooperation. Both of them are the pillars of happiness, and therefore they are meant for full cooperation for the common welfare. Maharaj Parikshit was experienced enough to drive away Kali from the field of activities and thereby making the state receptive to spiritual enlightenment. If the common people are not receptive, it is very difficult to impress upon them the necessity of spiritual enlightenment. Austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness, the basic principles of religion, prepare the ground for the reception of advancement in the spiritual knowledge, and Maharaj Parikshit made this favorable condition possible. Thus, the rishis of Naimisharanya were able to perform the sacrifices for 1,000 years. In other words, without a state support, no doctrines of philosophy or religious principles can progressively advance. There should be complete cooperation between the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas for this common good. Even up to Maharaj Ashoka, the same spirit was prevailing. Lord Buddha was sufficiently supported by King Ashoka, and thus his particular cult of knowledge was spread all over the world. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purpose of 1st canto 17th chapter, the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Punishment of Reward of Kali. Oh, Krishna, some issue with the OBS. It's not letting me share properly. My screen share was broken again. Krishna Govinda, I have to fix this somehow. Rearrange, and let's go to chapter number 18. Maharaj Parikshit cursed by a Brahmana boy. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama. Okay, chapter 18. Maharaj Parikshit cursed by a Brahmana boy. Sri Sutta Goswami said, due to the mercy of the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, who acts wonderfully, Maharaj Parikshit, though stuck by the weapon of the son of Drona in his mother's womb, could not be burned. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The sages of Naimisharanya became struck with wonder after hearing about the wonderful administration of Maharaj Parikshit, especially in reference to his punishing the personality of Kali and making him completely unable to do any harm within the kingdom. Sutta Goswami was equally anxious to describe Maharaj Parikshit's wonderful birth and death, and this verse is stated by Sutta Goswami to increase the interest of the sages of Naimisharanya. Text 2. Furthermore, Maharaj Parikshit was always consciously surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore he neither afraid nor overwhelmed by the fear due to the snake bird which is to bite him because of the fury of the Brahmana boy. Srila Prabhupada's purport. A self-surrendered devotee of the Lord is called Narayana Parayana. Very important. Self-surrendered devotee of the Lord is called Narayana Parayana. Let me read this verse, maybe. Brahmakoti Kopotitadyastu Takshat Prana Vilapavat Nasammo Moharu Bhayat Bhagavati Arpitasaya. Self-surrendered devotee is called Narayana Parayana. There's actually a verse, Narayana Parayana. I remember there's a verse. Says Narayana Parayana. Oh, Muktanam api siddhanam Narayana Parayana Sudurlabha Prasannatma Koteshva api Mahamune. Muktanam api siddhanam Narayana Parayana Sudurlabha Prasannatma Koteshva api Mahamune. Muktanam api siddhanam Narayana Parayana Sudurlabha Prasannatma Koteshva api Mahamune. O great sages, O great sage, among many millions who are liberated and perfect in knowledge of liberation, one may be a devotee of Lord Narayana or Krishna. Such devotees who are fully peaceful are extremely rare. A self-surrendered devotee of the Lord is called Narayana Parayana. Such person is never afraid of any place or person, not even of death. For him, nothing is as important as the Supreme Lord, and thus he gives equal importance to heaven and hell. Very important. He knows well that both heaven and hell are the creations of the Lord, and similarly life and death are different conditions of existence created by the Lord. But in all conditions, in all circumstances, remembrance of Narayana is essential. The Narayana Parayana practices this constantly. Remembering Guru Dev. Yes. Maharaj Parikshit was such a pure devotee. He was wrongfully cursed by an inexperienced son of the Brahmana who was under the influence of Kali, and Maharaj Parikshit took this to be sent by Narayana. He knew that Narayana, Lord Krishna, had saved him when he was burned in the womb of the mother, and if he were to be killed by the snake bite, it would be also taken by the will of the Lord. The devotee never goes against the will of the Lord. Anything sent by God is a blessing for the devotee. Therefore, Maharaj Parikshit was neither afraid of nor bewildered by such things. That is a sign of a pure devotee of the Lord. So, devotees don't counteract their life and circumstances coming in their lives, because there are ways to counteract through astrology and different kind of sacrifices, taking shelter of different demigods and things like that. But devotee always takes it as a blessing sent by Krishna. The devotee never goes against the will of the Lord. Anything sent by God is a blessing for the devotee. Hari Hari. Let's read one more. Text 3. Furthermore, after leaving all his associates, the king surrendered himself as a disciple to son of Vyasa, Srila Shukdev Goswami, and thus he was able to understand the actual position of the personality of Godhead, and at last gave up his material body on the banks of Ganges. Srila Prabhupada's paper, the word Ajita is significant here. Where is Ajita mentioned? Utsraja Sarvata Sangam Vijnajita Samsiti. Vijna being understood, and Ajita, one who is never conquered. Krishna. The personality of Godhead Krishna is known as Ajita or unconquerable. He is so in every respect. No one can know his actual position. He is unconquerable by knowledge also. We have heard about his dharma or palace, eternal Golok Vrindavan, but there are many scholars who interpret this abode in different ways. But by the grace of spiritual master like Srila Shukdev Goswami, unto whom the king gave himself up as the most humble disciple, one is able to understand the actual position of the Lord, the eternal abode, and his transcendental paraphernalia in the Dhama or abode. Knowing the transcendental position of the Lord and the transcendental mood by which one can approach the transcendental Dham, the king was confident about his ultimate destination, and by knowing this, he could leave aside everything material, even his own body, without any difficulty or attachment. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated, Param Drishtva Nivartante, one can give up all connections with material attachment when one is able to see the Param or the superior quality of things. From Bhagavad Gita, we understand that the quality of Lord's energy that is superior to the material quality of energy, and by the grace of the bona fide spiritual master Srila Shukdev Goswami, it is quite possible to know everything for the superior energy of the Lord, by which the Lord manifests the eternal name, quality, pastimes, paraphernalia, and variegatedness. Unless one thoroughly understands the superior and eternal nature of the Lord, it is not possible to leave the material energy. However, one may be theoretically speculate on the true nature of Absolute. By the grace of Lord Krishna, Maharaj Parikshit was able to receive the mercy of such personality as Srila Shukdev Goswami, and thus he was able to know the actual position of the unconquerable Lord. It is very difficult to find the Lord from the Vedic literatures, but it is very easy to know him by the mercy of liberated devotees like Srila Shukdev Goswami. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Jai Srila Gurudev, Jai Srila Prabhupada, Nitai Gaur Sitanath Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah anant koti vaishnav vrind ki jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Purushottam Mas ki jai.